Hello, and you're welcome to Global Business Insights, where you get more on the main business headlines across the globe. China's economic growth was upgraded by the International Monetary Fund to 5% from an earlier 4.6% GDP growth estimate for 2024. In the United States, fresh inflation data coming out on Friday may confirm expectations that the Federal Reserve is unlikely to cut rates anytime soon. Friday's April Personal Consumption Expenditures Index is expected to rise 2.7% from the same time last year, the same as what we got in March. For the month, it is expected to edge up 0.3%. Core PCE is expected to also rise 2.8% for the year, also the same as March. And tomorrow we get the first quarter US gross domestic product update to show the economy most likely grew 1.6% from the prior quarter. Looking at the latest projections on chances of a first US rate cut, the CME's FedWatch tool puts the highest probability of a first rate cut in November at 46%, now also saying only one cut this year. All through the year, three drivers have been tossing sentiment up and down. First, corporate news and earnings guidance. Second, the AI hype and how artificial intelligence is boosting growth in the tech space. And the last is the changing view and when the Fed will cut interest rates. Yesterday, Nvidia still closed up over 7%, AMD up over 3%, while Dell was also up over 3%. Clearly, the Nasdaq is still shining, helped by a stronger Nvidia performance yesterday, closing up 0.59%, while Dow is down 0.55%. And S&P 500 closed up 0.02%. Another deadline expires today for BHP talks with Anglo American, which has failed to produce a deal after 6 days of talks. Today is also elections day in South Africa, and the BHP deal just does not play well. The timing could not be worse, but anything can happen in the last minute. Hess shareholders gave the nod to a $53 billion takeover by Chevron as investors yesterday voted to accept Chevron's offer. But the acquisition remains subject to an FTC investigation and an arbitration process launched by Exxon. Rival ExxonMobil argues it has a right of first refusal over any sale of Hess's stake in a prize oil find in Guyana. But the big story and our deep dive is on Nigeria, where the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government marks a year in power and analysts are taking stock. Ministers are telling Nigerians what they've done, and for example, bold healthcare reforms are attracting over $4.8 billion in potential investment as we see more commitment to revitalizing the sector with a well-defined roadmap. It's a mix of the good and the not so clear, as civil societies are also aligning with the position of the IMF in warning that a proposed amendment of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act will weaken the bank while also threatening its autonomy. The central bank has hiked and tightened as never before as inflation defies the monetary rate hike hammer, awaiting other reforms to debottleneck the food value chain. The Dangote refinery is looking promising, and crude oil production in the last month has suddenly got a boost. Others just see what many are calling a familiar activity trap, with misplaced priorities as senators focus, for example, on the national anthem. The government has gone to some length to advise ministers to have a good story to tell or be shown the door as the nation celebrates 25 years of Nigeria's democracy. A split opposition helped to bring Bola Ahmed Tinubu to victory a year ago in a contested presidential mandate that started rough. But Nigeria's president surprised many by the vigor of the takeoff. Others said ideas could be better coordinated. Accountant and business analyst Mr. Lekan Sote shares his perspectives on the journey so far.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria is about rounding up his first year of his 4-year tenure. And a lot of people are coming up with various assessments, but this is what I think. He started by taking very bold steps: removal of the subsidies, collapsing of the foreign exchange rates, allowing it to float. Some don't quite agree with that, but he's taking those steps because I think that some of the steps he took, if he didn't take them, he would just have been postponing the evil day. But there are some things he needed to do which he has not done. You are going to remove fuel subsidy, for example. You need to plan for alternatives, mass transit, what we now call compressed natural gas, what we are now talking about electric cars or electric vehicles. He is becoming like an afterthought. It should have been a coordinated thought so that from day one, the problems that Nigerians will have been reduced. Okay, you are reducing the subsidy from electricity tariff, for example. Meanwhile, the federal government owns the national grid, which is the constricting factors. If it is true that Gencos can produce up to 14,000 megawatts of electricity per day, whereas the national grid can only carry 7,000, that is half. It's even suggested that the quality of the equipment, of the assets, have dilapidated so much that once you upload anything above 3,400 mega to 4,000 megas, it trips off. And this is 100% owned by the federal government. Why doesn't he think of quickly investing in the upgrade and expansion of this facility so that whatever the Gencos are producing, the national grid will be able to carry it and then offload the throughput to the discos, the distribution companies. But, we seem to be hearing or seeing a lot of activities from the central bank. I'm sorry to say that I don't think monetary policies is what is going to solve the problem right now. We need to look at serious, urgent macroeconomic policies, which are somewhat slow in coming. It's looking like baby steps, and that is not good enough. The Ministry of Finance, or the coordinating minister of the economy, the Minister of Budget, the Minister of National Planning, same person, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, the Minister of Industries, Trade and Investments, the Ministers of Defense, the two of them, and the IG, and as well as the Minister of Police Affairs and the National Security Advisors. They ought to be sitting down together and coming up with plans, actionable plans that will ensure that the productive sector, the real sector, the brick and mortar sector is working. Otherwise, whatever the CBN is doing is just going to amount to the final kicks of a dying horse. It's going to be a waste of time. And President Bola Tinubu needs to remove some of the dead weights, some of them appearing not just incompetent, but immature for the jobs that they have been given to perform as ministers of this country. Some of them just don't seem to understand the weight of the assignments in their hands. We are at, if you like, a state of emergency right now. And those who are at the helm of affairs, who are supposed to take decisions to move us from this point to the next point, they ought to be working, thinking even far ahead of the president. Somebody like Minister of Works appears to understand his schedule. The Minister of Internal Affairs also appears to understand his schedule. Just a few of them. The others, 48 ministers, some you don't even remember their names because you don't even know if you don't even remember if their ministries exist. The period of gestation or incubation of the ideas is taking too long. We need to hear some action.
We gather that a comprehensive economic emergency plan aimed at stabilizing the economy of Nigeria and set it on a path of continued growth is going to be unveiled soon. Indeed, rather than attempt to list all the many laudable initiatives by the Tinubu government, I would rather just look at three important aspects of leadership in what we all have to admit is a very difficult transition. First is trust and confidence. Second is a courageous, bold vision despite many legacy issues. And third is focus on the right hot buttons, all in a context of a well-navigated, people-focused change agenda. I deliberately use the word people-focused. Trust and confidence is important, not just for monetary policy and the central bank. Nigeria is at war with poverty, economic regression, and endemic corruption. The question is, do those who did not vote for the president see him as always acting in the best interest of the country and feel they can trust him to defeat these enemies? Another question, is he helping Nigerians to move away from tribal and ethnic silos and build a nation on a united front? Vision, however, is about a long-term recalibration of societal values to get better governance and outcomes for citizens. And it's about seeing a transformed future, different digital and knowledge-based economy amid a vastly more competitive geoeconomic context. It's also about envisioning what others consider impossible, but still providing a credible path while addressing today's hot buttons. Aiming for a $1 trillion economy by an overdue rebasing of GDP has to be complemented with truly transformational initiatives to bring people out of poverty and to offer them a better quality of life. The president has been spot on in some areas. For example, petrol importation has gone down by 50% since June 2023 and set to go down more in a few months when Dangote refinery begins to produce PMS locally, as well as the impending resumption of production at the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries. But analysts say the timing and sequencing of some actions related to lifting subsidies overburdened Nigerians needlessly and reflected lack of empathy for the vulnerable. Progress always tends to be underappreciated after it's been achieved, but every inch of this progress was a battle against strong status quo forces. It's still too early to hail any major victory. My sense is that we will be better positioned to applaud this change journey if this government listens to some of the useful feedback and acts accordingly. The flatterers and praise singers, all on steroids with their familiar orchestra, indeed, they are the worst enemies of the Nigerian change trajectory as they come out in full force. Well, that's it from me on Global Business Insights. This is Bode Oshosami. Thanks for sharing and for the kind comments and following or subscribing on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube and X. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.